Hello everyone, this is Jaron Smith, and I will be presenting today Intro to Adobe Premiere Pro for mobile desktop. Don't worry about the headphones, that was just so that I could test to make sure the audio is going through. So, tonight we're here to talk about Adobe Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro, if you're not familiar with it, is a video editing application. And video editing, the term, causes a little bit of trouble. So I'm coming tonight from my studio in Newark, in Union, New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. And as you can see, all the energy drinks behind me because, well, I'm an editor and a motion graphics artist, so I basically live on caffeine. By the way, you might be able to tell that from my little pin that I'm powered by caffeine. So, again, my name is Jaron Smith. I've been working with video editing programs for, at this point, something over about 20 years or so, about 25. I don't want to say how old I am, but you can tell from the gray hair, I guess. I've worked with Premiere Pro for approximately 20 years of that. I've cut on Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, Avid. I've used a few other programs to do it, but those are mostly the ones I've worked on. And for the last, I guess, 15 years or so, I've been almost exclusively Premiere Pro. I also use Adobe After Effects. I also use Audition, Cinema 4D. I used 3D Max for many years. So I'm generally a video editor, motion graphics designer, visual effects artist, that sort of thing. So I've been involved in video for a very long time. Now, today we're going to talk specifically about Premiere Pro. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, Adobe Premiere Pro is made by Adobe Systems Incorporated out of San Jose, California. They are well known for making some of the most popular programs for working in video, graphics, images, that sort of thing. They make Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign for those of you who do print design. For video, they make Audition, Premiere Pro, After Effects. They didn't create, but they actually had for many years made Adobe Flash, which is now called Animate. So they're a real major powerhouse when it comes to the creation of creative software. Okay, so let's look at my presentation. Okay, so we're going to go through this presentation fairly quickly. It only has a handful of slides. I don't want to bore you with slides. And then we're going to go into a demonstration of the software. Most of this is going to be working with and showing you Premiere Pro. I've got some files already set up, so we'll do a pretty quick little, like maybe 15-second promo video. Now, okay. So, as I said, Premiere Pro is a video editing program, and if you're not familiar with video editing applications, they are a little tricky, I guess. The term is a little convoluted at this point. So while I'm a bit older, my daughters are in their 20s, and when they use the term video editing, they're using it to refer to anything involving video at all. So they will group actual video editing with visual effects, and with compositing, and with motion graphics. And they kind of all collect that together into one subject, and that's what video editing is to them. Okay. Now, the only problem with that is the word video editing traditionally means that you're combining video, audio, images together, and then you're basically combining that together into a single video file you're going to export. So a television show is edited, a promo is edited. Visual effects is a separate part of that. Even videography, which is shooting the video, is a different part of that. So Premiere Pro handles one aspect of this entire process. It is the program that allows you to combine these different elements together into a new piece. Okay. If you ask Adobe, which you can do by going to their website, by the way, which is adobe.com, you can basically find that they'll say that it's basically an industry-leading software for video editing, and it allows you to create video for TV, film, social media, presentations, and you name it. So I have a master's degree in this area. I studied communication arts at NYIT in New York many years ago. And when I started doing this, I specialized in video and basically broadcast, and that was who used programs like this. People who were producing video, usually for film and television. Corporate video was also a big thing, but it was a lot less video than pretty much that. There's a lot less video in the past. Okay, right now with the growth of the internet, with the growth of social media platforms, with the growth of platforms specifically geared to display video like YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, Instagram Reels. Even Instagram itself is actually pretty strong for just straight video. The number of videos being created is much larger than once before. Back in the old days, when I first started, if people were producing corporate video that would display on a presentation or a convention, that was a big thing. But now video exists everywhere. So you basically have the ability to create this video pretty much right in your desktop. The other thing that's interesting is that when I first started, computers were a lot less powerful than they are now, and they required a lot more power and they were a lot more expensive to be able to actually produce high quality video. Now you can shoot video with your cell phone, and you can edit it on your laptop or even your tablet, by the way, and produce something really pretty cool. Okay. So what do you need? Well, those requirements for Premiere are pretty straightforward. You need, they recommend at least 8 gigs of RAM. They suggest that you have more. And for the record, if you're buying a new computer, I've never heard anyone complain about having too much RAM. Having not enough, that I've heard a lot of complaints about, but never too much. Okay. The other thing that's important about your computer is that, so computers, the video on computers can be displayed either using an onboard graphics card or a separate graphics card, a standalone graphics card. Premiere works better with those standalones. So when you're picking out a new computer, a lot of RAM, standalone graphics card, fast processor, that's pretty much what you'll want. Okay. Now, but what if you're on Android or iOS? Well, Premiere Pro runs on Windows and Mac. So Premiere Pro is a desktop and laptop computing program. Okay. To accommodate users of phones and mobile devices, Adobe created Premiere Rush. Premiere Rush is for Android and iOS users, and it's basically intended to be a scaled-back version of Premiere Pro that you can use to run on your tablet or mobile phone, so that you can use it to basically cut things together very quickly and output them for social media. That's what it's really built for. Okay, it's similar to Premiere Pro, but it's designed to be a lot easier to use. So while Premiere Pro is an extremely powerful high-end program, and it's a professional level video editing program, Rush is more for quick edits. You can also use it to prepare things that you're going to bring into Premiere Pro if you want to start editing on the fly or like as you're moving around. No problem at all. You can then bring that into Premiere Pro and keep working. Okay. So who uses Premiere Pro? Again, so when I started doing this, the high-end film and television used Avid. A lot of independent film used Final Cut Pro, and Premiere was mostly for, at the time, again, this is many years ago, hobbyists and corporate video people use it a lot, by the way. But over the years, that's changed. There are films that have been edited in Premiere Pro, Hollywood films. There are a lot of social media videos being edited in Premiere Pro. There are a lot of corporate videos as well being edited in Premiere Pro, and even independent films as well. So the industry is still using Avid, Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro. If you're familiar with software, DaVinci Resolve, okay, that's another one that's actually becoming very popular now. And Premiere has carved out its little space in the professional industry pretty much as a kind of Swiss Army knife for all sorts of different productions. Okay. One of the advantages of Premiere Pro, by the way, really, it's probably the major advantage of Premiere Pro over the other software, is that Adobe makes lots and lots of different software. So they make Photoshop, Illustrator, Audition, After Effects, and they integrate into Adobe Premiere Pro. So if you're looking for a kind of all-in-one production kit in a box, that's what the Creative Cloud is for you. Okay. It's kind of nice. Okay. So if you're going to just have your video, edit your video, and need nothing else, you could use Premiere Pro. But if you need to make or adjust still images, you've got Photoshop. If you need to make or edit vector-based graphics like logos, you've got Illustrator. After Effects is your motion graphics and compositing program. Ties all into Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is your hub. And while Premiere Pro does have some audio editing features, Audition is your tool for real audio repair, sweetening, or if you need to actually edit an audio project like a podcast. Altogether, this gives you a really powerful production studio right in the box. Okay. So a question I often get asked is, what is the difference between Premiere Pro and After Effects? And I'll admit, if you use the programs, they are like night and day. They're very different from each other. Different functions, different behaviors, different interface. But if you're new to this, it may not immediately become obvious what each is for. Okay. So Premiere Pro is for audio and video editing. Mostly video editing, but it does have some audio editing features, as you'll see. Okay. Multi-camera editing is a feature that allows you to, when you shoot the same subject with your cameras, with multiple cameras, more than one camera, the way that news shows are created, the way that some music videos and some films are created. You can actually use the tools in Premiere Pro to combine those together very easily and efficiently. Okay. Color correction, color grading are also features of Premiere Pro. While Adobe does have a standalone color grading program, most of the time you'll be able to use those features in Premiere Pro and save yourself some trouble. Basic audio fixing, audio sweetening, and some video effects. Okay. Now, the main difference in After Effects and Premiere Pro is that while Premiere Pro does some video effects, some visual effects, After Effects does a lot more of that. So After Effects is a motion graphics animation tool. It creates motion graphics animation, and it creates visual effects, and it basically does compositing and that sort of stuff. Okay. So features like video compositing, where you might shoot against a green screen and remove that green screen to put your subject in another background, can be done in Premiere Pro or After Effects. After Effects' tools for it are much stronger. Motion tracking, which allows you to basically analyze what's happening in your video and make things follow along with it, is a feature of After Effects. Okay, much stronger and more pronounced video effects are also in After Effects. And something called 3D camera tracking. If you're interested, next month we have, I believe it's next month actually, as part of our multi-subject seminar series, we're going to have a Premiere Pro versus After Effects seminar. Definitely tune in for that if you want. You can subscribe to our channel, you'll be notified of it. No problem at all. Now, okay. If you're interested, you may have seen Terminator Dark Fate. Premiere Pro is used to edit that. Okay. YouTubers such as Michelle Phan use it. John Krasinski's Some Good News show used it as well. And for those of you who are like Marvel nerds like me, you may have seen the Deadpool movie with Ryan Reynolds. That was actually edited on Adobe Premiere Pro. But the list of programs that use Premiere Pro to create content, to basically edit their audio or video, is really, really long and growing every day. While it is, again, very commonly seen in creating videos for a lot of YouTubers, a lot of social media celebrities, it is not only in that area. Okay. So you'll see it in television shows, you'll see it in independent films, you'll see it being used in, again, Hollywood films, and everywhere else. When I started using it, it was very popular for corporate video, which is what I worked on mostly. But at this point, it's everywhere. Okay. So one last thing in this, pretty much, is where can you get it? So Adobe software, if you're not familiar with it, is sold as a subscription service. So you can actually get Premiere Pro individually as one of the single point products they have, or you can buy it as part of the Creative Cloud, which is basically, Creative Cloud Complete is everything they make. So if you only need to edit video, and for the record, you'll probably find you don't only need to edit video. You'll more likely than not find that you need to actually do video editing and maybe some audio work and maybe some graphics creation and maybe some motion graphics work, you'll probably be better served by getting the entire Creative Cloud. The cost of the individual products, once you basically need 3 of them, you might as well just get everything. And when you get that entire Creative Cloud bundle, you basically get a lot of extra stuff that maybe you don't need. But if you have it, you can always learn to use it. So that's the one thing about this. I'll come back to this later because I'm here for Noble Desktop, and we teach classes in this. So I'll come back to this so we can see a little more of our classes. Okay, so I want to jump into Premiere Pro. So yeah, I promised the presentation would be relatively quick. And what I want to do, let me actually hide the doc. Okay, this is Premiere Pro. The first time you open the program, it's going to look like this. This is the welcome screen. Now, first of all, you can't close the welcome screen because it's the program. From the welcome screen, you can basically create a new project, open an existing project, that sort of thing. Before I go here, I actually want to look at the files we're going to work with. Okay, so I've got this folder that I put on my desktop called Noble Desktop Intro to Premiere Pro. That's what we're using here. Okay, I'm using, if you're interested, the cursor program I'm using is called Cursor Pro. It's a Mac program to make cursor a little easier for you to see. So in my media folder, I have an audio folder, an images folder, a video folder. Okay, so I'm old school. So I was taught to organize everything I'm going to work with into folders. I was taught to name my files. So in my video folder, for example, I've got an A-roll folder. I've got an overlays folder. Okay, so A-roll and B-roll, there's no B-roll here, actually, it's all technically B-roll, I guess, is the name for all of your primary and secondary footage. A-roll is your primary footage, B-roll is secondary footage. Now, this project is being created with footage that is from a stock website, a free stock website called pexels.com. There'll be a link to that in the description. So, in this case, this is what I call all A-roll or all B-roll editing. It's not like an interview where I have my main interview and I'm cutting to secondary footage. Everything we're doing here is actually right in here. Okay. Now, I've gone to the trouble of renaming all my files. I've gone to the trouble of making everything nice and understandable and nice and organized. Okay. So we've got a bunch of video files, which makes sense. This is a video editing project. But we also have an audio folder. So in the audio folder, we've got some music, and we've got a lot of sound effects files. Okay, a bunch of them. Because I want some sound effects in this, maybe. And I've also got an images folder. This images folder actually has one thing in it. Logo MMA. It's made in Adobe Illustrator. That's what AI stands for. And we're going to use this as an overlay for our project. Makes sense. So I've got everything I think I'm going to need. And if I need to import something later, I can always pull it in. But I've got everything I think I need organized. I've got everything I think I need named. And now I'm ready to work with it. So I was always taught, be organized first, keep everything nice together and easy to find. Okay. Now, the program will also let you work if you're not disorganized. Okay. You can have files all over the place in different locations. It'll still work. It will. I don't recommend it, but the program will let you do it. Okay. So back in the program. So first thing I'm going to do is make a new project. I'm going to make a new project, and I'm going to save it inside of that same folder. I'm going to keep everything together. Okay. Now, new project, file, new project, same difference. Okay. Now, by the way, new project and new team project down here are not the same command. New team project is a feature that allows you to work with multiple people over a network, sharing assets and resources. Okay. But I'm not doing that. I'm just basically here by myself. I'm working everything myself, so just new project. Okay. Now, if you're using an older version of the program, you actually would have a different new project window, by the way. This is the new one in the latest update. For those of you who are interested, I am running Premiere Pro 2022, but it's 22.4 update. This new project dialog box was created in the spring update. So if you're using an older version, it would be a little different. The new update basically has a much more visual new document dialog. That's it. Okay. So I only need to do two things here, honestly. I need to give it a name. So this is going to be an MMA promo, so I'm just going to call it promo. MMA. Okay. And I gotta tell it where to save the file. So this is really, really important. While technically, yes, you could have an empty project name, you need to tell it where to save the file. If you use the default location, you'll probably never find it again. The default location is a folder it makes in your documents folder, and every time I try to go there, I forget where it is. So I want to keep this with those media files that I made. Okay, so I'm just going to click on it, open, choose location. I'll go to standard, chooser, and I'm going to go to my desktop. And I've got my folder right there. Now look, you don't have to store your folder on the desktop. You can store it in documents, you can store it on an external hard drive, an external flash drive, whatever you want. Okay. I kept it on the desktop so it was easy for me to find. I do suggest that you in general keep your project files and your media in the same location, because that way I can just grab the entire folder, drag it to an external hard drive or another location, or zip it up and put it on Dropbox so that I can basically move it from place to place. So organization is your friend with this program. So I'll keep it nice and together like that. I'm just going to choose, if you're on Windows, it would give you a different menu. I believe it would be select folder. So Windows and Mac, the program is basically the same on both. The only difference is that some of the commands are different. Sometimes some of the buttons are reversed. And some of the functions you can do on Mac are based on the operating system, not the program. Okay. But this is all I got to do, really. I can do nothing else, and we're good to go. Project name, project location, boom, I'm good. Now, but what else could I do from here? Okay. So if you notice on the left, I have a list of folder locations: music, pictures, sample media, documents, desktop. I could actually import files directly from here. Let's me do it. Okay. That's what the search field here is. On the far right, I've got a copy media option, which will allow me to actually copy media from when I'm importing it. Now that might be helpful if I was pulling my files and importing them right now from my flash drive that my camera uses. Okay. But I've got everything saved, not necessary. Okay. Bins are the equivalent of folders inside the program. I'm going to make one now. I'm not going to do that. And I could also create a sequence, which is basically where you're going to assemble all of your footage. So I got these all turned off. I'm going to do that from here. Okay. I'm just going to create. That's all I got to do. Okay. And the program will make a new project for me. Okay. If this is the first time you're using the program, you're going to be in the learning workspace. So workspaces are how the program organizes the various panels that are here. Okay. When you first start, pretty much, I think most of the software Adobe makes, you're in the learning workspace, which gives you a series of tutorials. These are actually in-app tutorials. If you can download them, you can actually, and it'll walk you step by step through performing specific tasks in the application. And it's actually really good if you're just trying to become familiar with the application, or maybe you've used it for a little bit and just want to learn a little bit more detail. So they are great, but we're not going to be using those. Okay. So how do I get out of this? So the configuration of this program's interface is called the Workspace. You can actually jump from Workspace to Workspace. You can also make your own, by the way, 2 ways. In this version, there is a menu in the upper right-hand corner that basically hides all the workspace names. These are the workspace names. Okay. So editing, color, effects, audio, that sort of thing. These are the workspaces. Now I've got a bunch called My Editing, My Graphics. These are ones I've made. My Audio, because I like my layout better. Okay, but I'll just go to editing. It's a nice, easy way to work. Okay. When you first start the program, you probably will want to use one of the one of the default workspaces that they ship with. Editing, graphics, audio, these are basically there to give you quick access to the features for editing your clips, or editing your audio, or adding graphics to the application. But what you'll find the more you use the program is that, especially if you have like multiple screens, none of the default layouts are made for that. Or if you only have one screen that's small, the default layouts are a little tricky sometimes. Okay. So, not a problem. Not a problem at all. You can customize it. Okay. But you'll probably want to like use the program a little bit, figure out what you like. Now, I'm going to customize this now because I know what I like. Here's what I'm going to do. So these are my panels. Let's talk about these for a second. Upper left-hand corner, source, effect controls, audio clip mixer, metadata. Okay, so source is a preview window. I know I need this. Okay. Effect controls, what's that? I don't know. Let's find out. So the first thing I want to do is import some files. And specifically, since I went to the trouble of organizing my folders into that media folder, and I've got all of my subfolders there, I'd like to import it so that they all come in like that. Okay, lots of fun. Once we've got the files in, we'll see what these panels do. So we can figure out, do we really need them all? Maybe not. So I got to import files. File, import is the command. If you like keyboard shortcuts, Command-I or Control-I. Okay, which is not bad. Now, but my favorite way of doing this is simply double-click on the empty space of the project panel. That's it. Okay. That'll open the import dialog box, which, by the way, if you're on Windows, it will say import. On Mac, it just assumes you know what this is. Now, I can grab the media folder, and it will import all of the subfolders. And all of their subfolders, by the way. I love this feature. Okay. Now, I don't really need the media folder, so I could actually organize that and get rid of it later. If you're on Mac, it would actually allow you to grab the individual folders, audio, images, and video, and bring in their content and their subfolders. But for some reason I found on Windows, it doesn't let you highlight multiple folders. Not sure why, by the way. Okay. So I'll grab media and I'll adjust my organization once I'm inside the program. So on Mac, I just highlight the folder I want, import, we're good to go. On Windows, by the way, if you're using Windows, instead of import, there's going to be another button here called import folder. That's what you got to use to import folders. Okay, so I grab media, import, I'm good. Okay, if you're a Windows user, slightly different button. No big deal. Okay, now. Okay. So I clean that screen up so I can see this a little better. So here's what I've got. Project panel. Nice project panel. That's what you make when you make a new project. That panel. That is the project. Okay. Notice the project just had a name and a location saved default file. It had nothing else. Okay. And for the record, what is this? I'm going to pull back up my folder. That's the project. That's what I made when I made a new project. That thing right there. Okay. Okay. That's the project. The project does not have video settings. The project does not have a length. That's going to be in the sequence, the timeline. We'll make that in a bit, by the way. Okay. So this is the default display of the project panel. It's called the icon display. It's not bad, but I actually want to go to the list display. This is actually a detailed view. It makes it easier if you're going to use these bins. Oh, there's that word, bins. So they are folders on your computer, but, and even though they look like folders now, they're called bins inside of the program. This is a callback to the old days of film editing when film clips were stored in bins. Okay. What are they? Yeah, they're folders. They act like folders, look like folders, they're folders, but they're called bins. Okay. So in my detailed view here, my list view, I can actually see my bins and I can click this little arrow to expand them. And I can click on the bins inside of them to expand them. Okay. Now this is a little small, so I want to make this a little larger. On my keyboard, right above tab, there is a key called tilde. It's the one next to 1. When you click it, that's what happens. Whatever panel you are in expands to full size. Okay. It's full size. Okay. So, here's what I got. When I expand the bins, I actually didn't get the images bin. So, this is a weird little side effect of importing folders. Any folder that has a single thing in it does not get imported, but the content does. Okay. Okay. So I need to make a bin for this. Okay, no problem at all. I'm going to just grab it and drag it to the little bin icon right there. That's going to put it inside its own bin. Okay. I could also have basically just made a new bin, click on the button, and dragging stuff into it. So I like numbering things. It's a personal preference, by the way. I'm going to call this one 03, and then a little space, a hyphen, and images. And while I'm at it, I'm going to renumber these. So I want video to be the first one. So that's 01 hyphen video. So you can rename a folder by just clicking on it. Like that. Now, why am I numbering it? because if I actually click in the name column header, I can organize this by number. I like keeping it that way, nice and organized. Okay, if you don't, no problem at all. There's a search field up here. If you don't want to use bins, you could just toss everything together into one location, just your project folder, and you could use the search field to find things. I'd argue that the more stuff you have, the less practical that is, but hey, teach your own. So I never needed the media bin. I'm just going to grab the numbered bins. I'm going to drag them out so they're by themselves. Media is now useless. I'm just going to hit delete on my keyboard. Backspace for those who are Windows users. Okay. Now I've got this nice and organized the way I want. I can look at it however I want. Everyone's happy. Okay. Now, I'm not exactly happy. Kind of happy. So the problem with these bins, they're great for organizing files. They're great for organizing and keeping your files together. But what they basically give you is just a text-based display of your content. So whatever the name of your file is, that's what you're going to see. Okay. Now, the problem is video is visual. Might be kind of cool to be able to see it separately. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. If you double-click on a bin, it opens that bin as its own panel. Okay, so that's now bin 1. That's the project. Okay, I can switch bin 1 with all my nice, happy little videos, bin A roll actually, so that this is an icon view. And I give it a second and it actually builds a preview of this for me. Okay, so they're a little small. There's a scroll bar at the bottom. If you like keyboard shortcuts, by the way, Command plus or Control plus. Oh, sorry, just plus and minus. Not Command or Control, just plus and minus, sorry. Plus and minus actually make them larger or smaller. Okay, so I can get them actually pretty large. So the icon views are very helpful when basically I want to organize and see what I have here. You got to be careful because if you make it too big, it's a little troublesome. Notice that some of the video is vertical. Some of the video is horizontal. And actually, the video that's horizontal, there's like 2 different horizontal shapes. This really ultra widescreen version and these. Okay, but how big is that? Let's find out. In the icon view, if you hover over the name of one of your clips, you'll get a little tooltip telling me about it. The name of the clip is the first line. This is a movie. That means it contains audio and video. And its dimensions are 1920 by 1080. This is measured in pixels, by the way, if you're not familiar with it. This is the size that we call 1080p. It's basically our, what we call full high def. It's our largest high definition size. Anything bigger than that is basically ultra high def. So what's this? Let's find out. 2560 by 1080. I believe that is the 2K size. I have to double check, actually. What else do we got? Some vertical ones here. Let's see. That's not vertical, but that's nice. Ooh, that's 3840 by 2160. That's 4K. And by the way, I'm pretty sure that's vertical 4K. So as you can see, I've got video of all different sizes, all different settings, all together, no problem at all. And like this, I think is 1080 by 1920. That's just basically full high def vertically. Okay. And I'm going to put all this stuff together and make a project out of it. Okay. So do you have to have files that are all the same size and dimensions and settings? Nope, not at all. The program will let you mix and match. Okay. What else do you see on this tooltip? Let's find out. Third line, it is the length of the file. This one, by the way, is 13 seconds, 23 frames. Those numbers are called time code. Look at that a little later, by the way. Now, the tooltip eventually goes away, so if it vanishes on you, just hover back over it again and you're fine. This video is 25 frames per second, 25p, okay? This one, 25. Let's see what we got. 25, not bad. If I go back to the list view for a little bit, I can actually see columns of my content. So I can actually see my frame rate all here. So that one is actually a little different. It's 23976. It's basically 24. Okay. But most of these are the same size, same settings. I got this video from Pexels, and it's a European creator who created it. So that's why 25. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my icon view. Not bad. I'm kind of like this. So I'm thinking what kind of story I want to tell. This is a promo for the MMA club. I'm thinking that I want to tell the story of how someone would be training in a day. Okay, I think that makes sense. So I can see some of this in what it is. I'm not sure about some of it, though. What is this giant black video here? Let's find out. Okay, so the icon view has an interesting feature called hover scrub. If you hover your cursor without clicking on the clip, by the way, and drag it across a clip, it will play for you. So this is actually an ultra widescreen video of this guy punching some tires. Okay, sounds like fun. The problem is when I go away, it goes back to me not being able to tell what that is. Okay, I think this might be better if it was actually previewing right here where I can actually see what's happening. Okay, so the displays of these are called the poster frames. And if you hover scrub over a clip, right click, or for those of you who have one button mouse, control click, on the menu that appears somewhere up or down is set poster frame. That did not work out properly. Let's try that again. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So it did set it, but it didn't actually refresh. Sometimes it doesn't happen. Okay. So I've got some of these light sparring punches. It might be nice to actually have this as a poster frame where I can see the punches. So again, right click, set poster frame. Okay. And now when I go away from it, that becomes a new frame. Okay. So there's a slight preview issue right now with this, so that I'm actually every so often I'm hovering over it and I'm losing my poster frame. I think it's my cursor program screwing it up as I cross over the frame. But it's pretty cool. It comes right back as you can see it right away. So you can set the poster frame to whatever you want, like this here, kicks. It might be kind of cool to see the guy kicking. So I'll make that my poster frame as well. Okay. So now I've got an idea of what's happening. So he's shadow boxing. That's good. So a bunch of these are individual and a bunch of these are groups of people. So how would one start a training session in MMA? I used to do it, so I do have an idea of this. Well, usually you might warm up, so I think that'll be the first clip. That's good. I want to use this display to actually set what's called a storyboard edit. Storyboard edits are a great way of laying out your clips so that you can see how you plan to use them. Okay, I'm going to drag that. That's the first one. I think that's good. I think you'd be starting warming up. I think it also would make the colors a good place to put the logo here, actually, as well. That's pretty cool. I can go for that. Okay. And then what would you be doing? Well, he's got hand wraps. He's got gloves. So I figure the next thing you'd be doing is wrapping your hands. Okay. And I figure you might do a little shadow boxing before you start pounding the tires. That sounds pretty good. I can go for that. Okay. Maybe you'd also want to, before you start pounding on tires, maybe you want to get some work done on the heavy bag. So that seems like a decent order to go in. Yes, it's pretty cool. Okay. And as I hover scrub over that, I see it's got an actual heavy bag moving around. That might be a good part to make my poster frame for that, so I can really see what's happening there. Okay. It's kind of cool. That's not bad. Okay, then what would you really be doing? You would basically start with maybe some light sparring. Maybe some punches and some kicks. Some punches here, maybe some kicks right here. Okay, I think the ground fighting will be last thing you would practice. And actually, before I do that, I figure you'd be hitting the mitts. So I'm going to drag that back up there. So I can organize this display however I like. The icon display is simply a grid. And I can use this to figure out what I want. Okay. Now, if I was working for a client at this point, or I was working with other people, maybe collaborating with another editor, I'd probably take my storyboard, just do a screen capture of this, and upload it to my colleagues to look at the ideas on what they think, how well it's organized. Okay. Now, here's what I would say. That's a lot of clips that are very, very close to each other right here. They're very, very, very the same distance. These are all basically what are called mid shots. Okay. So I'm thinking that it might be good to vary that a little bit with maybe some close-ups like that. So I'm not looking at the same distance all the time. It gets a little boring doing that. Okay. That's good. I can like that. I can go for that. I can go for that. Yeah. I'm actually going to set that actually as my poster frame. So I can use this display to basically give myself a good idea of what I'm working with, what I'm looking at. Okay. And when I'm finished with that, I'm going to go back to my normal display. Again, that's tilde on the keyboard. That's the squiggly line above tab, by the way, if you're not familiar with it. Or the one to the left of, it's the key to the left of number 1 on your keyboard. Now, the other way that you can basically go back to the normal layout is to double-click. Double-clicking on any of the panel names will expand it or contract it. Okay. That's not bad. Now, when I go back to the small size, I don't actually automatically scale, so I'm going to bring these back down so I can see a little more of them. So, I still have a problem with the layout. Even looking at the bin here, it's really hard to see. So let's see what some of these panels do. Okay, what does source do? Well, source is your preview window. When you double click on something, it pops up in source. Okay, from the source window, you can see the length of your clip. It's on the right side, by the way. Okay, you can see where the clip has audio and video. These clips, by the way, list as having audio, but they really don't. Okay, and you can also preview your clip. There's a little play button right down here. Spacebar is the keyboard shortcut for it. So you can basically play your clip in real time, see what happens. Okay, now I like keyboard shortcuts, so here's what I like. Okay, J plays backwards, K pauses, L plays forward. It's called JKL editing. Okay, so I usually use that for most of my controls. Okay, need a couple of things in the source panel, but it seems like something I would need. Okay, so what are effect controls? Effect controls basically show you the effects on your clips, like the position, the scale, you can adjust them. So you need that too, okay, definitely. Audio Clip Mixer is an audio tool that basically lets me control the volume of clips. I don't think I need to see this right now, so I'm going to close it. Okay. Metadata is information attached to your clips, like keywords and that sort of thing. Those can be helpful, but I don't need to see them when I'm editing, so I'm going to close that panel as well. Okay. So that's not bad. I like that. It gives me a little more space, I think, a little clearer on some of the panels. I know I need project, because if I close the project, this is gone. Not the panel, by the way. You can close the panel and it doesn't close anything, but if I close the project, this is all gone. But I want a little more space for this, so I think it should be up here. Now, what's the program panel then? The program panel shows you what's on your timeline. And I know I don't need to see the project and the program at the same time. So I'm going to drag it up here. I'm going to drop it in the middle so it drops together like this. They group together. Everyone's happy. I want to put my A-roll bin up there as well. Okay. Media Browser is a preview tool. Lets me preview and import files. Okay, it's a good panel. It's helpful, but I don't need it right now. Okay. Libraries, I don't need. Info gives you info on whatever's clicked on, which I get when I hover over it anyway, so I don't need that. Okay. Effects, let me add special effects in my clips. That's helpful. I use that all the time, so I'm going to drag that up here on the left. Okay. Markers are a way of basically marking off something happening on your timeline or on your clips. Helpful panel, but I don't need it right now. And history, for those who use Photoshop, it's the history panel. It's a list of everything that I've done in the program, and I can basically undo stuff. This program has multi-undo, so if I just tap Command-Z or Control-Z, it keeps going back, so I usually use that. Okay. Now that looks a little more interesting. It gives me a much larger preview for my program and my project and my bin. It gives me a nice wider timeline, which I think will be helpful to me. And the last panel over here is your volume meters. Okay, so when you have audio, they move. Okay. Look, I don't need to see the numbers. I just need to know green is good, yellow is dangerous, red is bad. Okay. So I'm just going to make that a little thinner so I can have an even bigger timeline. And this way, I have my nice, organized, neat timeline here. Easy to work with. Okay. Now, by the way, this is the workspace that I call my editing. Okay. It's the one I created, and this is basically what I like to work with. I have others, again, to keep the source and organized, but this is the one I like to work with for most of my basic editing tasks. So I'm going to save it. Window Workspace is the other way to jump from Workspace to Workspace, and there's a command here, save as new workspace. Okay. You would give it a name. I'm going to call it My Editing, by the way. And because I already have one, it's going to override that one. And I'm good to go. No problem at all. Okay. Now I've got My Editing. Ooh. So I can reset this workspace, edit it, manipulate it, no problem at all. Now, there is one interesting thing about this. If I go back to editing, that's the original editing workspace. That's my editing, that's my editing. I just made these two. This is the original editing workspace. Notice it looks like the one I just configured. Because that's the one I was manipulating. It's the one I was adjusting to make mine. So if I want to return their editing workspace to the default, window workspace, reset a save layout. When in doubt, that command will reset your workspace back to its original configuration, its original saved mode, and it will fix most of your problems. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my editing right in here. Which is the one I did. I believe that's the one I just made. Okay, like that. And for some reason, that jumped over there. I've never really understood why. I'll go back to my editing workspace like that. You can adjust the panels around. You can move them around. No problem at all. Okay. So here's what I need before I can start editing. So I've got my clips laid out the way I think I want to use them. But I need to actually have a timeline before I can put stuff together. So in the source panel, I can do what's called trimming a clip. I can shorten it, take a part of it. And then I could technically export that file. There's a command when you're in the program on the panel, export media. But that wouldn't allow me to combine any of these clips together. To combine clips together with images, with audio, with other clips, you need a timeline to do that. That's what this nice little panel is for. Okay, so what we're going to make is a sequence. A sequence is where you're going to combine everything together. Sequence and timeline are used interchangeably. Okay, but I got to make a sequence. And while the project does not have settings, the sequence does. Okay, the sequence is what has video settings. So it has dimensions, it has frame rate, it's all those things. Okay, and you need to make the sequence with the proper settings. Okay, that's okay. So look, you might do this. File new sequence. Okay, for the record, I am an Adobe certified expert in this program. I have worked with video for more than 20 years. I don't know what the right answer for this is. There's like so many choices. Okay, seriously, it's insane. So I'm not going to do it that way. Not at all. So there's a rule of thumb in Premiere Pro when you make a sequence. You don't make the sequence based on what you plan to export. So if you use any other program on the planet, for the record, by the way, okay, like Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, After Effects, you make your files based on the size of the document you want to make. So if I'm making like a 4x7 postcard in Photoshop, I would make a document 4x7, okay? But that is not the way Premiere Pro and not the way video editing programs in general like to work, okay? In general, these programs want you to make your sequence based on the type of files you're using, okay? Because there's a lot of stuff that the sequence has to do to prep those files to display properly, and the more work it's got to do, the slower it goes. So what I need to do is find which of these videos represents the majority of my footage and match it. Now, if the majority of my footage, by the way, is not the size I want to export, I can make adjustments. I can change them, okay? So I'm going to very temporarily go back to that list view, and I'm going to look at my dimensions. Slidey, slidey, slidey with that scroll bar over there, okay? And then video info. Okay, I'm going to use the video info to organize this for a second. Just click on it, boom, we're good. So 1080 by 1920, 1080 1920, okay, 1080, wow, 816, really unusual size, by the way, my bad. But if I look at it, most of the footage, 1, 2, 3, 4 here, it's 1920 by 1080. And then 1, 2, 3 here is the larger size, and here that's 4K, okay? So it looks like the majority of my footage is 1920 by 1080, and that's beneficial for another reason, because I know that 1920 by 1080 is the standard high def size that most people use. So if you're prepping video for display on YouTube, Vimeo, social media sites, someone's website, it's probably going to be in that size and shape, okay? Now, anything that is larger, I can scale down to 1920 by 1080 without a problem. Anything that is smaller, if I scale it up too much, it will degrade. Okay, so when you're picking which file to make your sequence from, you are basically need to be like careful with this. So it's either usually the majority of footage or primary footage. Like if I had an interview, that would be the file I made the sequence from. In this case, it's a little iffy, but that is the majority, and also again, that's the standard high def size you're going to see in most situations. So I make my sequence from this, and this is how I do it. Now, what if I'm wrong? Ooh, what if I make it from this vertical one? Okay, let me go back to organizing by name. Let me go back to my icon view. What if I make it from that? Here's how I make a sequence, by the way. You drag the file into the empty timeline. Okay, that's my sequence. Oh, look, my sequence is vertical now. If I add anything that's not vertical to it, that's what happens, okay? So I'm going to undo that until that sequence goes away, for the record, okay? So whatever you make the sequence from, the sequence has those settings, the dimensions, the frame rate, and everything, okay? So you want to make sure that you pick the right object. So again, I'm going to go with one of those 1920 by 1080 videos. I'm going to go back to my bin. And again, any of the ones with 1920 by 1080 would work. So I'll grab that one. This is not even my first file, but it's the one I made the sequence from. I can make a sequence from dragging and dropping, as I did and undid, or I can right-click on a clip and say, just make a new sequence for me. No problem at all. Okay. Now I got my sequence. My sequence has settings. Sequence settings, if you want to see them. It's got the dimensions, it's got the frame rate, all taken from the file. So basically this is telling it how to preview and build this file for you, this sequence for you, okay? When you export, you're going to export the sequence. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this. Now, this is not supposed to be the first clip of my timeline, but it is supposed to be the first one that I made the sequence from. So I'm going to delete it. Goodbye. Now I got one more problem. Go to my project panel for this. I'm going to go open video. I'm going to open A-roll. One of these things is not like the others. That's a movie clip. That's a sequence. Okay, that's the icon. If you want to make the icons larger, there's a little scroll bar up at the bottom. So I'm going to rename this. Okay. Promo main. That's what I'm going to call this. You call it Bob for all it cared, but I call it promo main. And it's not A-roll, it's a sequence. So I'm just going to drag it out of this bin. A little white fist. I'll close the bin. It's all there by itself. If you want to make a new bin for your sequence, go right ahead. I usually keep them out in the main project panel, but it's up to you. Okay. So that sequence is basically where you're going to assemble stuff. Now back to my A-roll. Okay. So I need some audio. Actually, back to project. Let's see. There's some music for this. And if you're doing something that's music-based, there's no voiceover for this, but if there was a voiceover or a music track, we're going to edit to the voiceover of the music track in that case. You put that down first. Okay. If that's the case, why couldn't I have made the sequence from the audio file? Because audio files do not have frame rate or width or height. So it'll technically let you do that, but wouldn't help me. I needed something that would match the size of the video I wanted to make and of most of the video I have. So music lead up to a fight. Let's see this. Okay. Okay. There's some music there. I can go for that. Okay. You know what I just realized? It is actually not play the music on the live stream. So let me actually... You know what I just realized? It is actually... Yeah, I just realized. It doesn't play the music on the live stream. Okay. So, which is fine. But I do know this, that there's high points in the music, and that's actually my beat where I'm going to cut to. So I want to make a relatively short part of this. I'm going to take the opening of this, and I'm going to... Actually, I've got my headphones in. I'll use my headphones for this so I can actually hear what's happening. For 1 second. Okay. Yeah, cool. Just making sure that the audio was actually playing. Okay. So I only want about, let's say, I want a 15-second promo. I'm going to take about 30 seconds of this, but I don't want it from the beginning. I want it from a little past the beginning. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so I want to basically cut off the first, this is like a 1 minute audio, by the way. I'm going to cut off the first like 30 seconds of this. So I'm going to jump to 30 seconds on my timeline, and this is how I do it. These numbers are time code. They tell you where you are on the clip. So the beginning of the clip usually is 0, and then everything else is someplace else on that clip. That's 44 seconds, 1 frame. And if any of you are into audio, you'll tell me, yes, audio does not actually use frames. I get that. But that's how Premiere Pro previews audio files. It does use the timecode for everything. Okay. Now, so I want the first 30 seconds off. So I'm going to type in 3000. 30 seconds, 0 frames. I'm going to tap the enter key on my keyboard, and it jumps right there. Okay. Now, I want to get rid of everything in front of this. So I'm going to set an in point for this clip. So every clip is an in point and an out point, a beginning and an end. By default, it's the physical beginning and end of the clip. Okay. I can also modify it like that, which I'm going to do. So I want 30 seconds of this. So 30 plus 30 is 60. Okay. O for out point. You can use the buttons or the keyboard shortcuts are I to mark an in, O to mark an out. And they're always placed where your playhead is right there. So now I've got just this 30 seconds, 1 frame of audio. So the program counts from 0. So when I ended exactly at this, I get like 1 extra frame. I want to go back 1. There is a button right here to go back 1 frame. I'm going to use the left arrow key on my keyboard. I like that. And now I'm going to tap O again to set a new out point. So I get exactly 30. Remember when you're counting here, it's always 1 frame more. Okay. Now I want to add that to my timeline. Okay, so when you saw me grab video, you saw me grab the preview up here. That doesn't work for audio, interesting enough. To grab audio, I can either grab it and drag it from the project panel, Or if I want to do it from source, I grab that little button right there that drags audio only. I'm going to drag that to audio section of my timeline. Audio 1 specifically is where I'm going to put it, by the way. And I'm going to drop it right there at the beginning. The selection tool can like make sure things snap to the beginning like that. It snaps to where I want it. Now when it's a little bigger, keyboard shortcut Shift plus makes the tracks taller so they're easier for me to see. I'm also zoomed out pretty far, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Plus on the keyboard zooms in, minus zooms out. Okay. Now, when I play this, I'll hear the audio. Okay. I want to actually put on the beginning of this clip a little fade in, so I'm just going to do that with one of my audio transitions. Transitions are special effects that can be applied at the beginning or end of clips, and they basically can do things like fade the clips in or out or adjust them, that sort of thing. There's a lot more video effects than there are audio ones, by the way. But one of the audio ones, actually, there's really only 3 audio transitions, and they're all for fading. So I'm just going to right-click on the beginning of that clip. I'm going to apply the default transition, and I'm going to get that, which will give me a slight fade. Okay. Which is fine. Gotta take my word for it, because I just realized that it's not actually playing the audio in the live stream for this. So, because honestly, if it did, it would actually completely screw up my speech. So, just take my word for it, it does fade in. Okay. Now, I don't want to screw up this audio, so I'm going to lock this track. Every track has a lock feature. So, these are not layers, they are called tracks. Visually, the video ones function like layers. Whatever is above is what you'll see first. Okay. But for audio, if you actually add content to multiple audio tracks, they'll just play together simultaneously. You can lock any track to prevent you from interacting or messing anything up, which is what I want to do now. Okay. So now I've got that. What I want to do basically is add my audio at key points in the sound. And if I look very closely at this, and I'm going to make this a little taller by dragging the bottom of this track a little taller, I can see in my audio preview, called a waveform, that there are high points here, and that's the beat. And I'm also going to cut this so that my audio would, my video cuts, my video beginning and end would match the beat. Okay. You do this with voiceovers, you do anything that's music video based, anything that's promo based, where the audio is the driving factor. Okay. And I'm just going to basically decide how long to make my clips based on this. Okay. So I'm thinking that's actually a good point. And normally I would do this, play with it a bit. Okay. Here's how we do it. So I'm going to add to my timeline an in point right there. And I'm going to go to where I want to, in the clip, I'm going to do O for out point. This gives me an area on my timeline that basically says this is where the clip's going to go. So I'm defining a duration for the clip I'm going to add. Okay. Could you just preview a clip, drag the entire thing on? Yeah, you could. Not going to do that because effectively then I've added a lot more stuff than I ever intended to use, and I got to cut it down, and it's annoying. And the more things I have to already on my timeline, the less practical this dragging giant clips on is. So I was taught to basically add the stuff you need as you need it, and only that way. Okay. So here's what we got. Okay. So I've marked off this area with in and out points on my timeline. I'm going to make what's called a 3-point edit. Okay. So this is giving me the duration of the clip I'm going to add. And I'm going to take that jumping rope clip, and I'm going to look for something cool in it. Something where it's moving, somewhere it's moving around. I think like right about there might be a nice place to start the clip right there, I think. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And in the source, I'm going to add an in point. Mark in or just I on the keyboard. So I called it a 3-point edit. I now have 3 points, three marks. An in point, an out point on the timeline, defining the length of the clip to add, and an in point in the source, defining where to start. When I add this, it's going to basically give me in point, starting at in point, and it's going to stop the clip right there. So I can basically control how much clip I'm adding to my timeline. It's called a 3-point edit. Very common technique in video editing. Okay. So I also only want to add in my video because the audio for this is empty. There's nothing there, actually. So here's what I got. If I drag the preview, it ignores my in and out points. It couldn't care less. Okay. So I can't do that. So here's my way of adding this. Here's first choice. That's the program panel. I can grab the clip here. Specifically, I want to grab the drag video only button, and I'm going to drag it into the program panel. And when I do that, I'm going to get some choices. Okay. Okay, so I'm basically going to overlay this. It's going to put it right in there on that clip above anything that was already there, and it's going to stop at the out point. Okay. If you prefer keyboard shortcuts or buttons, these are the buttons for it. Insert and overwrite. Okay. So I can also do an overwrite edit. Overwrite would put it on the first available track. Overlay would basically put it above anything that's already here. Since there's nothing else on my timeline for video, they work the same way. Okay. Okay. So I can also, if I wanted to, by the way, use the overwrite button right there or comma on my keyboard. That would add it. So now I've got that first clip on the timeline. It matches up with my playhead. Everything is good. And here's what I'm going to do. I held down Shift to snap to the beginning of that clip, another in point. I'm going to play or drag to where I've got another mark in the beat, like right about there, out point. And then I'm ready to add my next clip. Go back to my bin. I'm going to be using keyboard shortcuts because I don't want to have to keep dragging to the program panel to do this. Keyboard shortcuts are a bit faster. Okay. So that was my next clip. And I'm going to look for a part that looks nice in that clip. He's moving it around a little bit. He pans in. I want something with movement in it. I'm thinking actually right around here, maybe. Yeah, that was too much. Maybe like here when he's wrapping his hands right there. I think it's good. So, in point for that. And then I'm just going to type again, comma. Now, by the way, notice how the source panel stays highlighted when I do this. I got to click back in the timeline, set new and out points. A little annoying. So, preferences. If I'm going to keep using this method of adding my clips, in point, out point on the timeline, and then in point to make my 3-point edit, and then I just add it in, it's a little more efficient if the timeline highlights after that command. So I'm going to set a preference. We got preferences. There's a timeline preference category here. And the timeline preference is interesting. It basically controls how the timeline behaves. And there's two things that I like happening. One, I like when my playhead snaps to the clips on my timeline. That's snap, playhead, and timeline when snap is enabled. And I like set focus on timeline when performing insert override edits. So it'll basically just save me a little clicking and dragging behavior, basically. Okay, I'm going to do this one more time. I'll go to the in point of that clip. I for in. I'm going to jump over a couple of my beats. So I keep my edits on my beat. Alt point. Back to my bin. Grab my next clip. Okay. Now, by the way, if you really, 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 really don't want to have to actually do it this way, I'm going to grab all my clips. Because even going back to the bin is annoying. I highlighted them all, by the way. Click on the first one, shift click on the last one, and then I'm dragging them all into the source panel. I end up looking at the last one, if you notice, by the way. But what this does is it basically loads them all in. And what I can now do is basically just use the menu in the source panel to jump from one to the next. So I don't have to keep going back to the bin and dragging stuff in manually. I can load all the clips that I want. They'll all be saved in the source panel. I can just jump around here. So that was my next one, right? It was the shadow boxing. Yes, it was. And this might be kind of cool when he's punching. I think that's pretty nice. So maybe right before he connects might be kind of cool. So in point for that. And then I'm just going to use my comma key to run it right into the in and out points. And this time, notice that my timeline is highlighted. So that was the result of that preference that basically shifts the focus to the timeline. So now I'm at the end of that clip automatically because that's what it does. I for in point, and I can basically just find my next cut point I want to make. Oh, go back to source, go to the next clip. There actually is not a keyboard shortcut for moving from the next clip in the source. Interesting enough, by the way. There is a command for it, but they never actually made a keyboard shortcut for it. Sorry. So, over here, what's this good? See, this might be kind of cool. I want to get a part of that where it's like swinging like this. Yeah, I can go for that. Like that. I think I want to end it on that, so I'll just start a little before that, I'm thinking. Maybe right as he's coming in like that. That's a nice move, I think. I for in point, again, comma. Okay, so now what I've got on my timeline is basically this, that. And now what you can see is I got a problem because the video sizes are all off. So the sequence was made 1920 by 1080. Okay. Again, if I go to sequence settings, you'll see that. But all of these videos are different sizes. Okay, so this one is wider. Now, the fact that it's wider isn't a problem. It's still the same height. So technically, if I just double click on this, I can see that it's simply cropping out the edges. Okay, not a problem. As long as my main important part is in the middle, I can leave it like this for good. But that fails here. This is the vertical video. This is 1920 by 1080, but vertically. So I end up with a problem where this really doesn't work out very well for me at all. So I'm thinking that it might be cool to not have these horrible black bars at the side of my video. This is called column boxing, by the way. It's the result of taking video of one shape and putting it into a frame as another. Okay, you might be familiar with it from old DVDs where we basically would have bars on the top and bottom. That's kind of acceptable. These are really annoying, so let's fix this. So there is no perfect solution for this at all. No one's ever had a perfect solution for the record, by the way, ever. Here's a couple solutions. One, I can scale this up. I can basically just scale it up to fill the space. Okay, that's probably the simplest solution, by the way. So I'd click on my clip. Okay, I go to Effect Controls. This is where you actually control the effects on your clips. Okay, there's two kinds of effects. The ones that are already here, the ones that are static, and the ones you add. Okay, which is fine. They're categorized. Motion, opacity, timer mapping. Motion is what I want. Okay, and I'm just going to take that scale value, I'm just going to raise it. If you hover over a number in this program, you get a little finger icon. If you click and drag in one motion left or right, it will scrub the value. So I can basically pull that up to its full size. Okay. Now again, as I do that, if I'll double click on this, you'll see it. I can't see the edges. I'm just going to change my fitting a bit to zoom out, maybe to 50%. Or not enough, maybe 25%. You can see there's all this up here that's missing. Okay. Now, by the way, you can manually drag this around as I could manually scale it if you can see the edges. Okay. Or, in position, that second number is vertical. I'm just going to hover over it. I'm going to drag it until I can reframe this. Okay. That'll give me something that fills the screen. I'm going to go back to fit so I can actually see the entire video in the frame. I've got now something that actually does kind of fill the screen. If you got to scale it up too much, it's going to degrade, so it's not always a perfect solution. Like I said, no one's ever come up with a perfect solution. Some people will basically take that video, show it multiple times on the screen. You may have seen in news where they'll basically just copy the video, blah, 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 like that. I just option dragged up to duplicate the video. And then the one on top, I'm going to reset to its size with the little reset button right there. Then I'm going to scale it down so it basically fits in the frame totally like this. And then they'll usually take an effect like a Gaussian blur up here in search, Gaussian, G-A-U-S. They'll drag that onto their clip. The bottom one, by the way. Back to Effect Controls, and they'll blur it. So you might have seen that solution used in news a lot, does that actually. That way they fill the screen, they're using the same color so it doesn't look so disruptive, and they can get the entire video in place. Okay. So, like I said, there's no perfect solution. Some people will basically take the smaller clip and just basically display it on screen multiple times in a multi-frame picture-in-picture effect is what it's called. So, like I said, there's no perfect solution. I'm going to use my original one to scale it up because that'll work in this case. I'm just going to go back to this, and I'm going to delete Gaussian blur. Let's highlight it, just hit delete on your keyboard. It's fine. So that'll work for me. But I'm thinking I want it a little more interesting. So this is called a straight cut. Okay. It's not bad. And I might be able to find a nice part behind it, but I want to make this a little more stylized. So I'm going to go back to my project panel. And I've got a whole bunch of videos. It's called overlays. So where is this one? I have one here called a light wipe. This is what it is. It's a video file, a camera in a dark room, and a flashlight is run past the camera lens. And what you get is basically a video that's black and white and gray. And there's a point where, right about there actually, where it's almost entirely white. I think we can use this for an interesting little transition, actually. Let's do that. Now, this is a marker. It's added with that little button right there, and it was added so that I could know exactly where the light wipe appears. Okay. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to drag it in above my two videos. Okay. I'm going to press plus on my keyboard a couple times to zoom in on my timeline so I can see it's a little closer. And that little marker will snap to the beginning and end of the clip so I can get it right there. Okay. Now, if I move my playhead around, this is what happens. It covers it. Because that's what it does. It covers it. Okay. Now, that's not really what I want. what I'd like is if I couldn't see this video completely. So I want a light leak effect where basically that light wipe kind of covers this and it replaces it. But I don't want to cover all the video. I want the darker parts of this top video to go away. Okay. If you've used programs like Photoshop, maybe you're familiar with blending modes. They allow you to mix or blend color layers together. Well, we don't have layers, we have tracks, but they behave the same way. So I've got this upper clip selected right now, and I've got a opacity category in my effect controls, and I'm going to change the blending mode right there. I'm going to go for linear dodge, I think. It's a nice one. So what that gives me is the darker pixels of this top clip are now hidden. Only the lighter pixels are here. Okay. So now when I preview this, I just went a bit ahead of it and press spacebar. I get that. Since only the lighter pixels are visible, I can actually still see the bottom clips here. I get that nice little transition effect. And since it's lined up right with that edit line, it covers that change. And I can get a nice little stylized effect like that. Okay, not bad. I can go for that. So I'm going to pull the audio tracks down a little more because I want to give myself a little more space for my video tracks. Okay, they're a little tall, so the little scroll bar on the side, if I drag it down, it makes all the tracks taller. But if I drag it up, it makes the tracks only in video a little smaller. Because I want to add something else. This might be kind of cool if in addition to the light wipe, there was a blur maybe. So it gets a little blurry as it approaches the join line and then a little blurry as it moves away from it. I can go for that. To do that, I'm going to use something new. So we have in this program, which can only be made from Project Panel, by the way, right here, new items. And I'm going to make what's called an adjustment layer. Adjustment layers basically allow me to create layers that can hold effects. It's going to take the size and the settings of this sequence, which is good, and say, okay, I'm going to make a new bin, right-click, new bin from selection. I'm just going to call it utilities. Okay. I'm going to drag that in above my light leak. Now, by the way, this thing is 5 seconds long by default. I'm just going to take my selection tool, and I'm just going to shorten that a little bit. Okay. That was nice. No problem at all. I can go for that. So the adjustment layer itself does nothing. If I want to make it a little easier to see, I can make it a little smaller again. But what it lets me do is go to Effects. Adjustment layer is highlighted, by the way. I'm going to add that Gaussian blur to the adjustment layer. I can either double click to apply it or drag and drop it. Now I'm applying on the adjustment layer. Here's why. I'm going to animate this. Back to Effect Controls. The right side of this panel lets you animate things, so you can change them over time. Okay. I don't need to adjust the motion of this adjustment layer or the opacity. I need Gaussian blur. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change that to something like, let's say, 60. Oh, look, it's really blurry. Okay. Now, by the way, it's only blurry for all time. As long as that adjustment layer exists, it's blurry. Okay. So what I'm going to do is animate this by adding keyframes. That's what this little stopwatch does. I'm going to click it. Oh, look, it's a keyframe. Keyframes hold this property in time. They say, at this point in time, this is your value. Okay. I'm going to go to the beginning of the clip. Just drag it right there. Snaps to the beginning of the clip. And I'm going to change that to 0. Oh, look, there's another keyframe right there. At the beginning of the clip, you are 0 blurriness. As you approach here, you become 60 blurriness. Notice the clip is actually getting more blurry. Okay. I'm going to go to the end of my transition right there. I can barely see this on the timeline, but it's still there right there. And I'm going to change that to 0 as well. Makes another keyframe. So now what I have is a point in the middle where it's really blurry. And it leads into the blurry part, and it leaves it. So when that plays back, I basically get a blurriness animation added to the light leak. And again, timed to where that light is really bright. So I get a nice, cool transition like that. Nice, fun, no problem at all. Okay. If I need to edit that value, maybe it should be more blurry. I need to be on top of that keyframe when I do it. And that's what these little buttons are for. Go to next keyframe, go to previous keyframe. Changing the property value here will basically make a new keyframe. If you're on top of an existing keyframe, you're just editing that one. Okay. And if you or anyplace else, you make a new keyframe. So be careful. That's why you can jump keyframe to keyframe. So I can get a lot of these little like effect things used to my transitions, but maybe you just want something simpler, like maybe here. Okay, now this is, by the way, too big, so I'm going to do this little trick. This video was actually the right shape, but it's just bigger. So I'm going to right-click on that clip, and I'm going to set it to the frame size. Like that. That's a very quick way of making a clip that doesn't match the size of your sequence. For the record, there were two commands there, set to frame size and scale to frame size. Use set to frame size. It's more undoable. Scale to frame size is more permanent. Okay. That's not bad. I'll do the same thing over here. So this one was actually physically larger. So technically, I don't actually need to do anything with this one, except I'm just going to move it down a little bit. Go back to motion. I want to get his face in the screen, so I'm just going to pull that down a bit so it's a little more obvious. And by the way, if you wanted, yes, I could add keyframes for this, and I could animate that clip moving as this happens. Right there. That's not bad. I like that. Okay. Now, I don't really like where this clip ends. I think this clip should end more of him actually finishing his punch. Okay. So I'm going to shift this clip's positioning. Now, you got a couple choices. I don't like how I hold this too long. It's a little boring. I want this actually to end right here. So I want to make some changes. Okay. Now here's my goal. I want this clip to be shorter, and I want all these clips to pull over a little bit more. Okay, that's my goal. So here's what I got. I got some tools. The selection tool would let you shorten a clip, and I grab these and pull them all over, which isn't helpful to me at all, by the way, okay? So what I want to do is basically shorten this clip and pull these all over automatically. And again, they're going to match the same beats. It's going to pull over a little bit. You might not want to do this if you have a lot of clips, but in this case, it works pretty well. I only have 4. So I'm going to use the Ripple Edit tool. Here's its job. It lets me click on a clip and shorten the clip. Now, for the record, it's the same exact thing I did with the selection tool, but here's the difference. When I let go, all of the clips slide over. Okay, and I can use this to basically adjust the clips. Let's zoom in a little bit on that one, by the way, make it a little easier for me to see. So they match the edit lines of the audio. So they match the beat and change. I get a nice little transition right there. Up and down arrow keys on your keyboard will move frame by frame. Now you got to make sure if you're using the Ripple Edit tool that you're pointing in the direction of the clip you're using. But it's designed to shorten a clip and pull everything else over to keep it in sync. Not bad. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out with minus a bunch of times. I got that. Now that's not bad. That works. But what if I wanted to adjust 2 clips simultaneously? Maybe I want to basically adjust these 2 clips so that this one gets longer and this one gets shorter, so I could basically make that point where they join, called the edit line up with that change of beat. Okay. So the Ripple Edit tool adjusts a single clip. That's all it does, okay? But the Rolling Edit tool, which is sharing space with it, I press and hold, and I can see, hey, there's 4 tools here. The Rolling Edit tool, you click at it, line where 2 clips meet, and it rolls the line, adjusting both clips simultaneously. I drag to the right, so this first clip got longer, second clip got shorter by the same amount. What it's doing is basically adjusting those clips in and out points for you. So you've got a lot of tools in this program that are basically designed to make it more efficient to read clips on your timeline. So because this was a audio-centric workflow, I added my audio first once I made my sequence. Okay, I used the points of the beat that I could see, and again, if you hear the audio, you basically would hear it, to match the point of the beat changes. I added in and out points on my timeline so I could basically control where the clips are added. But sometimes that doesn't work out exactly perfectly. So you may need to, and you will need to, by the way, is what I mean, adjust those clips, and this program has all the tools for it. No problem at all. Okay. You even have a razor blade tool if you need to cut a clip for some reason to remove something in the middle. And then you can delete whatever you don't want. I don't want to do that. It's fine over here. The least dangerous tool is the selection tool. So whenever possible, go back to the selection tool so you don't accidentally hurt any of your clips. Okay. That's not bad. I can play that. That actually works out pretty well. Same thing here. I don't actually now like where this clip starts and ends. I'd really prefer if this clip ended where he had that bag more on screen. Okay, let's see if we can change that. I need to adjust this clip's, not its length, not its duration, not where it is on the timeline, But I need to adjust where its in and out points are. So in and out points on those clips that we made in the source panel are basically designed to hide parts of your clip. They're like a frame on time. Okay. I need to adjust where that frame on this clip is. Okay. So I could actually reload that clip into the source, because it's right in here, by the way. Work in the heavy bag. I could make new and out points and then add them to the timeline. I don't want to do that. It's too much trouble. So we have a new tool. I love my tools here, okay? The slip tool. The slip tool has one job and one job only. If you click on a clip, it won't change the clip's length. It will not change where the clip sits on your timeline. But if you click on a clip, it will change where the clip's in and out points are. So what I'm seeing right now is a preview of the in and out points of the clip. That's the large part on the bottom, okay? The one on the left is where the new in point, the starting frame of the clip is. The one on the right is where that clip now ends. And if I drag left and right, I can basically change it so I can end up with a different look on these things. So I'm dragging to the right, and I'm looking for a point where that bag basically covers almost the entire screen. And that's going to be the point where I end this. When I let go, I go back and preview with spacebar. That's what happens. So I've shifted where that clip is showing. I've shifted what part of the original clip is being shown on the timeline. That's what the slip tool does. Okay. Kind of fun, kind of enjoyable, not bad at all. Okay. Now, the colors are a little off. I'm going to do one more thing. I have time for one more thing. Okay. I use the light leak here as an overall change to the clip. No problem at all, okay? Definitely. I basically used it as a wipe, so it would basically hide the clip change. But I want to actually do one more thing to this, because all of those videos look a little different because they were shot a little differently. I kind of want to give myself a little stylization for this. And to do this, I'm actually going to make my tracks really, really small. Shift minus on my keyboard. Sorry, I got to highlight my timeline. Sorry. Shift minus contracts the tracks to their really smallest size. Shift plus makes them bigger. Shift minus makes them smaller. Okay. And I'll notice that I've got V1, V2, and V3 here, but that's only the beginning. I can make a lot more of these. I'm going to go back to my project, back to that adjustment layer. I'm going to drag it on top of this empty space here, and it's going to make video track 4. There's no limit number of tracks you have. If you keep basically dragging an empty space, it'll make them. You can also right-click, not on the button, by the way, but on the side over here, you can add track, which gives you 1, or add tracks, which actually gives you a dialog box that has as many as you want. So you can use this to basically stack your content up and up and up and up and up. And I'm going to take my selection tool and make this track, this clip longer. I want it to be the full length of all my video, and eventually I'd add more video, but this is a good start for this. Okay. I don't like the name adjustment layer, so I'm going to right-click on that. And from the menu that appears, I'm going to rename it. And I'm going to call this color grade. The colors and the names of your clips are set automatically, but you can change them. If you wanted to change the color, you would simply right-click, and you'd basically change the label color assigned to it. I'm going to go with blue. I like blue. Actually, I like Caribbean. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now, here's what it is. By default, nothing happens here because the adjustment layer is an invisible layer. Okay, but, always but, I can add an effect to this. I love effects. Okay, now I'm going to add a very specific effect to this. And I'm going to add that effect in the color workspace. I'm going to switch to my color, though the color workspace they give you is fine as well. Okay, so what this basically gives me is the Lumetri color panel. And the Lumetri color panel is a color grading and color correction tool. And it's great if you want to fix colors, but I also want to stylize it. What I want to do is basically toss a color look on top of this. So I've got my adjustment layer highlighted. And in Lumetri color here, I've got this creative section. And I've got this preview. And I'm going to click through it. And it's going to give me a list of different color looks I can apply. It's basically this list, this nice big list that I have here, okay? Now, like that. Like that. Okay. Now, by the way, if you actually use the preview, you can actually get different looks on this. Clicking on the preview will apply it. If I apply one look, it replaces the other ones. Okay. So if I know exactly the one I want to add, I can basically just go to the list. But if I don't, I can preview it and see what it is, and I can look at different parts of the timeline. That's nice. I like that. It's pretty nice as well. But the one I'm actually looking for is actually SL neutral start. I'll do that. So if I hide this layer for this track for a second, that's the original, that's the change. So that look just gives me a really quick color stylization that I can use. The panel allows me to make a lot more choices, including really, really targeted controls. Okay, I'm actually going to increase the saturation of the colors a little bit for this so they're a little brighter and stronger. But it's a really quick way of getting a nice little color effect over all my video. The same panel would let me color correct and fix and adjust things, but I just wanted to get a really quick stylization on it to see if you could do it. I'll go back to my editing workspace. I can jump around. So you spend a lot of time jumping around the different workspaces, by the way. You'll find that editing is good for certain things, color is good for others, and that sort of stuff. Okay. Now I want to add one more thing to here, and that is my logo. I'm going to add it at the beginning of the clip. I'm going to drag it in. So the logo, by the way, is assigned to be basically 5 seconds long by default. I don't need it to be that long, so I'm just going to right-click on it. I'm going to go to speed duration. And for a video file, by the way, this panel would let me change the speed of video. But because it's a still image, it's set a new length. So I'm going to make it 3 seconds long. 300 is that. And I'll say OK. And so now I have that. Okay. Now I don't like the way that appears, so I want it to fade in and out. Okay. So I've got my logo clip selected. It's all in this nice happy track. I'm going to apply a transition to it. If I click on the clip, and it is, actually it's sequence, sorry. Apply video transition, the keyboard shortcut is Command D, which is how I usually apply it. Because the clip is highlighted, it gives me a transition at the beginning and the end. Now by default, these are 1 second each, so that's not helpful to me, so I'll double click on them. And it's 1 second, 5 frames. I'm just going to make it like basically, let's do half a second, so basically 12 frames. I'll double click on the other one, change its length as well, so I can get a much quicker fade in and fade out. Okay, and I'm thinking I actually want to have the length match the cut, so I'm just going to drag my selection tools and grab the end of the clip with the selection tool, drag it in, so now it lines up with that cut line, so it fades out as the white flash runs. Like there. So I can get a nice logo overlay that pops up and then vanishes, matching my cut. And I can basically keep doing this and building more and adding stages. You can even do cool stuff like for the video, I've got my overlays again. I've got overlays like video glitches, like it's this, basically. It's a series of glitching lines. Okay. I can add that in. I'll add that above everything, by the way. Notice it now covers everything because it's black video. But if I go to its effect controls, it's got blending mode as well. And this time I'm going to use the blending mode again, screen. Color linear dodge screen will give me similar effects. It turns off the black lines, leaving only the whiter lines. And now I've got those video glitch lines running over everything. So it's very easy to add stylization to your video. It's very easy to like adjust it so that it's not just video. This case, I was using relatively simple glitch lines. I've also got another file in here that's basically like old overlay captures from old film. But you can actually find a lot of these things on websites like pexels.com. They're not paying us, by the way. I just really like pexels.com. Okay. The two graphics I use, all the video was from here. This is a free stock photo, images, video site. No problem at all. And they have thousands of videos, by the way. All of the MMA video was from this. The other site that I used was vecteezy.com. They provide vector graphics. This is where I got that samurai logo. And sorry, that's where I got the MMA logo, actually, MMA text. And then Brands of the World is where I got the actual samurai logo. And it does, Brands, I misspelled world. I'm actually pretty sad, apparently. Sorry about that. Brands of the World is where I got that. Yeah, this happens sometimes. It actually wants to block this site. So right there. Okay. That's why I got the samurai logo. So from these 3 places is where I got all the footage I used in here. And they're actually really pretty cool. I'll put a description in the description. I'll put the links to these sites. It's pretty cool. But that's where I got all the assets that I used for this. Cool. We're about into it. Oh, hello. Any questions? Let me know in the chat window. I'll see if I can, in the next 1 minute, address them. That's 7:30. Well, 7:30 my time in New York. Cool. Now, by the way, I actually have time for one more thing, by the way. I'm going to go back to my beginning, and I'm going to do this. Okay. Let's say that I want to export just the first, couple seconds of this that I have here. On my timeline, I'm going to make an out point. This is now my active part of the timeline. That button right there, quick export, will let me export a file. I'm just going to put it in my folder. It's my folder for this. I'm going to make an exports folder. And that's where I'm going to put everything. I get to choose the quality. Okay, I'm going to go with match source adaptive high bitrate, which is going to be a nice high quality MPEG-4 file. Click export, and it's going to get this. When you have it in out points on your timeline and you export a file, it limits what's exporting. This is how I control it so I don't send out everything that's here. That in and out point. This is the active area. That's what exports when I click that button. And then I'll have a video file that I can share with anybody on the planet I want. I can email it. I can put it on YouTube. I can put it on Vimeo. Social media, no problem at all. And that's how I'd work. And then I'd keep adding more clips, keep adding my adjustments, keep adding my effects and my styles until I've got my 30 seconds, 15 seconds, whatever I need for my promo length. And then I send that to my client and hopefully get paid. Cool. That will be the end of this Intro to Premiere Pro seminar. We are Noble Desktop. So what we basically do is software training, everyone. And if you are interested, we have Premiere Pro classes, video editing classes, After Effects classes, Audition classes that we teach at our location on 34th Street and Madison Avenue in New York City. We offer both in-person classes at our New York location, and we offer what we call online classes. We basically have online classes via Zoom, live online classes where you participate in the class and you learn everything that we're learning on our physical in-person classes. So I hope you've enjoyed the session. Thank you, everyone. Once again, my name is Jaron Smith for Noble Desktop, and thank you for joining me for our Intro to Premiere Pro.